So it's pretty clear that most of Quicksilver's powers are all related to his speed. I mean, they basically have to be. But there's some interesting powers Quicksilver ends up with as a result. Things you wouldn't actually think about too much, so let's start there. Number 10. Super speed thinking. Evidently, super speed doesn't just affect how fast your body moves, but it affects the mind. Quicksilver is able to think faster than the average human, allowing him to perceive reality faster and respond accordingly. And if you think about it, this is pretty much essential to anyone with super speed. If you can't perceive what's coming at you when you're moving, you'd just be running into everything. In fact, as a result, Quicksilver has an arrogant personality, which writer Peter David explains is a result of this, stating that Quicksilver lives in a world filled with people who don't know how to use cash machines and want to know all the ways to send packages to Africa and can never get your order right in a Burger King unless you repeat it several times. That would tend to make you feel very superior to everyone and very impatient with everyone. I like that, that's really well thought out. In fact, it relates to his next power. Number 9. Photographic memory. So, with that kind of mind, you need to be able to take in details at a faster rate, which essentially gives Quicksilver a photographic memory. Now you might be thinking, photographic memory is cool, but it's not a superpower. But you might not know this, but there is no evidence suggesting that photographic memory even exists, which, given the circumstances, would actually make it a real superpower. So I'm giving it to Quicksilver. Number 8. Speed epidemic. In the Marvel Zombies world, Quicksilver is actually instrumental for the widespread of the epidemic, due to the fact that his super speed allowed him to infect a large amount of people in a remarkably short time. Quicksilver effectively made it impossible to contain the zombie virus just because of how rapidly he was able to spread it. So Quicksilver may be the most effective zombie in history. Number 7. Isotope E exposure. Initially, Quicksilver was only able to run at the speed of sound, but after an exposure to isotope E, Quicksilver was able to run at speeds of up to Mach 10, which, combined with the power to resist friction and kinetic impact by vibrating his molecules, enable him to walk on water, even running across the Atlantic Ocean. Not a bad augmentation by any means. Number 6. Superior breathing. So Quicksilver is able to move comfortably in environments where oxygen is reduced to a point where an ordinary human could no longer breathe, indicating that his breathing ability, something essential to any runner, is enhanced by his mutation in some capacity, which would also indicate that he has superhuman stamina. Number 5. Time displacement copies. After his sister Scarlet Witch removes most of his powers, Quicksilver receives some new abilities thanks to the Terrigen Mist, a naturally occurring mutagen. These abilities include being able to displace himself in time and move into the future, allowing him to create copies of himself. Notably, he used this ability to take down Magneto in Son of M number 5, overwhelming him with 2 additional copies of himself. Evidently, they shared some form of thought process, even continuing each other's sentences. Probably the coolest power he had, in all honesty. Number 4. Power restoration. So, after Quicksilver lost his powers, he exposed himself to the Terrigen Mist to regain his abilities. However, he also took Terrigen crystals into his body, which also gave him the ability to restore mutant powers that were taken away. That said, this process could usually prove fatal. Still, risk aside, it is a pretty impressive power. Number 3. Navigation via vibrations. Another advantage of Quicksilver's abilities is that he's able to detect vibrational patterns in his environment, effectively enabling him to be his own compass. This skill is particularly advantageous when in open areas and allows him to maintain orientation while traveling at high speed. Nothing too special to say about that, but a very useful ability. Number 2. Transfer molecular vibrations. So Quicksilver is able to vibrate his molecules at high speeds, but he's also able to transfer those vibrations to other objects, which can cause it to explode or collapse. And this is a skill he uses to escape prison upon regaining his powers in X Factor: The Quick and the Dead. And of course, this ability to destabilize his molecules allows him to walk through solid objects. And number 1. Flight. Yeah, I've only seen him use this ability once, and that was in the original X-Men comics way back in issue 44. In an attempt to give chase to Angel, he announces that he's recently developed the ability to fly, but can only remain airborne for more than a few seconds. By all means, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've researched, this hasn't come up since then. Still, it happened, and given its few appearances and obscurity, it's topping my list. And those are our top 10 powers you didn't know Quicksilver had. I gotta say, most of his powers really sound like the Flash. I almost wonder if they should have kept his power of flight, at least then you could separate the two a little more. Hard to say. Anyway, have a good one.